everyone, and welcome back to the Grace and Grounded Red Letter Study. I am so glad that y'all are here. Today, we're going to be beginning the Sermon on the Mount. And again, we're going to be slowing down and we're going to study the very first words that Jesus speaks. So today, we're going to be looking at Matthew 5, verse 3. And it says this: "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." Now, at first glance, these words seem completely backwards. I mean, if you were asking me to introduce God's kingdom, I might begin by saying, blessed are the faithful, or blessed are the strong, or maybe even blessed are those who have it all together. But Jesus begins with something unexpected. He says, blessed are the poor in spirit. To the people listening that day, blessing was often associated with outward success. So if someone was really wealthy or respected or considered especially religious, many just assumed that they had God's favor. In the negative way, it was if things were bad, it was because of sin. But Jesus immediately challenges that way of thinking. So it got you asking the question of, well, what does he mean, poor in spirit? You see, Jesus isn't talking about financial poverty, and he isn't encouraging us to think poorly of ourselves. To be poor in spirit is to recognize that, spiritually speaking, we come before God with empty hands. It's understanding that we cannot earn his love, deserve his grace, or even save ourselves through our own goodness. It's not about having a low opinion of yourself. It's just about having the right opinion and posture before God. You see, the more clearly that we see his holiness, the more clearly we recognize our need for his mercy. One of the best illustrations of this comes from Jesus' own teachings that you can find in Luke 18. It tells the story of two men who went to the temple to pray. One was a Pharisee, and he stood confidently before God, and he thanked him that he wasn't like any other people. And then he went on and he listed all of his religious accomplishments. He fasted, he was giving, he was obedient. His prayers were filled with all that he had done. The other man, now, he was a tax collector. And tax collectors back then, today too, I guess, they were despised in the Jewish society. Many of them had become wealthy by collecting more taxes than Rome actually required, and they would keep the difference for themselves. So they were viewed as traitors and sinners. But Jesus says this man wouldn't even lift his eyes toward heaven. Instead, he beat his chest and he prayed, "God, be merciful to me, a sinner." Jesus then says something super astonishing, at least I think it is. It wasn't the religious leader who went home justified before God. It was the tax collector. Why? It's because he understood his need. He brought nothing to God except just a heart that he knew he needed mercy. And that is what it means to be poor in spirit. It's coming before God without pretending. It's without comparing yourself to others, without trying to impress him. It's just simply acknowledging, Lord, I need you. This wasn't a new idea. We can actually see throughout the Old Testament that God consistently drew near to those that were humble. David wrote in Psalms 51:17. He says, "The sacrifices of God are a broken spirit, a broken and contrite heart. O God, you will not despise." And then you can look in Isaiah 66:2, where God says, "This is the one whom I will look. He who is humble and contrite in spirit and trembles at my word." So Jesus isn't changing God's heart, he's just revealing it. So what do these words tell us about Jesus? Well, they're going to reveal that he is a king unlike any other. Earthly kingdoms here, we reward achievement and we reward self-sufficiency. But Jesus welcomes those who know that they need him. He doesn't invite us to clean ourselves up before coming to him. He invites us to come honestly, humbly, and dependent on his grace. And I really love that this is where Jesus begins his greatest sermon. Before he tells us how to live, he reminds us that life in his kingdom begins with recognizing our need for him. So, today's question: am I good enough for God? But the better question is, have I realized how much I need him? According to Jesus, that's where the kingdom begins. So that's going to end our study for today. Thank you for joining me here with Grace and Grounded on our red letter study. And tomorrow we're going to continue with the next words of Jesus, and we're going to discover another surprising characteristic of those who belong to his kingdom. Until then, we'll see you next time. Bye.